then, how do you get yourself out of that? Because you got yourself in a big hole right there. And kind of learning how to do that now, but it's, again, technique, something you learn with experience.
So sometimes you'll tell a joke and the audience doesn't get it and make it meta. So if they don't get it, I stoop down and make fun of the audience for not getting the joke. And you'll see a lot of comedians will do that now. And I go meta, and I stoop down and I say, that reference means that my wife is short. Okay? So, and then I continue. Like I prepared 4 follow-up jokes. I'm not abandoning this material. If you guys want to leave the room while I finish, that's fine, but I'm finishing. Yeah. Right? I'm going to finish this joke because I have to review it later, and then I can't fix it on stage. I can't fix a car during the Indy 500. You have to stop the race, and I'm not stopping the race. Mm-hmm. So, you deal with it. But yeah, the Bill Burr thing, I think he made some sports reference, and it was the wrong team, and I'm not even good at that. And then so he was screaming back at the audience. And he's like, that's where your team has never won a pennant or something. Like, what does that have to do with your jokes?
It was impressive that he had that sports knowledge that he could just pull off the top of his head, though.
Yeah, something that would insult a sports fan. It was something like, that's why you're always 8th in the draft. Right. I don't even. Yeah. But when I'm at a comedy show and a comedian, or I see on Netflix and a comedian tells a joke and I don't get it, I blame myself. I don't blame the comedian. I'm like, well, he must have had. Maybe I don't read enough. Maybe I need to read up on that. Then I'll read up and I'll go, oh, so that's the Kathy Griffin reference, and that's the thing. This is what I've learned. We're going to have to close this up soon, but this is something I've learned is, how everybody thinks they have a sense of humor.
Right.
And very few people, not everybody does. If there were, everybody would be a comedian, right. But everybody thinks they're funny, right? Yeah. And another thing is everybody thinks, like, if you like to read, you probably do read a lot, and you may not even think you read a lot. But compared to someone who doesn't really like to read, it's work for them. Right. They might read one headline a week, and to them, they read a lot. They think they read a lot because they don't enjoy reading. Yeah. So you can't even win an argument by saying, well, if you read more on this, you would know, because everyone thinks they read it just as much as they need to. Right. But there's actually no such thing, right? You could spend your whole life reading everything about one subject and never finish before you die. Right. So there's a happy medium that you have to be informed on a few things. And like if I mentioned the North Korea situation and someone says, well, what situation is that? Okay, I don't think I'm going to have lunch with this person anymore because we might both get hit by a car. This person has no awareness. Yeah. That worries me. That's often a sign of mental illness, actually. It's like, so let's talk about current events. You mean the meatballs? You mean the bad service here at the restaurant? No, I'm talking about the things in the sky. Right. So everyone thinks they read a lot. And then when you tell an audience, if you were smarter, you'd get my joke, which is actually true. But in some cases, you can't say that. Right. And so I think I've actually said that when you had some quiet moments, the jokes that were funny that people didn't get. And I think I came on later and I said something like, sorry, Steve was under the impression that this audience reads. Yeah. So we're, it's fun to go meta because sometimes I'll make fun of the audience. I'll say, I'm sorry you guys couldn't be here tonight. And you got to have fun with it. So that's the whole thing when you're doing stand-up is we're listening and we're there to entertain. So I planned some material. I was hoping that would be entertaining. But if that's not entertaining, I'm going to entertain myself with this bad audience I've been stuck with, which actually I think I mentioned before, there's actually not such a thing as a bad audience. Yeah. It's just an audience you didn't know about. And then you could have planned for it if you'd known about it, but you never know. We always have a mixed group of people who knew in November that we're going to have a bunch of people drunk from the racetrack showing up from the horse races. And it was a big crowd and it was raucous, but I actually enjoyed it. But, some of you guys looked like you just came back from Auschwitz. You had those gaunt faces. Like you looked like you'd seen a body. We're going to close this up. We've been here with Steve Howard, and you join us again next week.
Yep, thanks a lot.
All right. And this has been Talk Funny. We'll talk to you next week.